All right, we're going to try and unlock a secret to creativity today, and it comes from a pretty surprising place, the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He came up with this amazing framework. You can think of it like a creative ladder that helps us figure out what's really going on in our heads when we imagine. So let's start climbing.
We throw the word imagination around all the time. A kid has a great imagination, a movie is so imaginative. But Coleridge, he thought we were being, well, a little sloppy, that we were lumping totally different mental activities under one big, vague word. He wanted to get specific. He wanted to understand the actual machinery of creativity.
And here's the problem he saw. We often mix up the act of making something truly new with just, rearranging stuff we already know. It's kind of like the difference between inventing a whole new color versus just organizing the crayons you already have in the box. To fix this, Coleridge drew a really sharp line between two ideas, what he called fancy and imagination.
So the first step on Coleridge's ladder, the one we most often mistake for genuine creativity, he called fancy. A really good way to think of it is as the assembler. The way Coleridge puts it is so precise. He says, fancy only plays with fixities and definites. In other words, things that are already set, solid, and unchanging. It gets all its materials ready-made. This means it's not a creator of new stuff, just a really clever user of things that already exist.
The absolute best analogy for this is Legos. Imagine you've got a huge box of bricks in all sorts of shapes and colors. You can put them together in endless, clever ways. You can build a car, a castle, a spaceship, but you are never changing the bricks themselves. That red 2x4 block is always going to be a red 2x4 block.
And that Lego idea, it just perfectly captures what fancy is all about. It's a mode of memory. You're just using the bricks you already have. It works with those fixities and definites, the solid blocks. And its power is aggregative and associative, which is just a fancy way of saying it gathers and connects those blocks. But just assembling existing pieces, that's only the first step. When we climb higher up this ladder, we find a much, much more powerful and kind of mysterious force. This is what Coleridge calls the secondary imagination. And this is the true creator. Just listen to the words Coleridge uses here. They're all about total transformation. It dissolves, diffuses, dissipates. It takes things and breaks them down at a fundamental level. And why? To recreate something that is idealized and, this is the most important part, unified. It doesn't just connect things, it fuses them into one.
So if fancy is just arranging the Legos, the secondary imagination is like throwing all of them into a furnace. It melts that plastic down into a raw liquid, completely destroying the old shapes. From that molten goo, it can mold something entirely new, like a perfect, seamless sphere where you can't even tell where one brick ended and another one began. Now, the really crucial thing here is that this is an act of conscious will. It's an intentional, active process. You are choosing to dissolve, to recreate, and to unify. This is the power that makes a true work of art feel like a single, solid thing, not just a collection of clever parts stuck together. But wait, there's one more level. And here's the twist. It's not at the top of the ladder. It's the very foundation that everything else is built on. This is the primary imagination, or the perceiver. And get this, we all have it, and we are all using it every single second of our lives.
This is a massive idea. Coleridge is saying the primary imagination is the power behind all of our perception. It's the totally unconscious process that takes in this chaos of light, sound, and feeling from the world and somehow organizes it into a meaningful reality for us. He even calls it a finite echo of divine creation. That's how fundamental he believed it was.
Let's go back to our Legos one last time. Before you can even think about building with them or melting them down, your brain has to do something miraculous. You have to look at a pile of colorful plastic, and your brain has to instantly recognize, oh, those are Lego blocks. That subconscious act of turning raw data into a concept, that is the primary imagination at work.
So what this means is that primary imagination isn't some special artistic talent. No, it's the universal, automatic miracle our minds perform constantly just to make sense of the world. It's the very ground that both fancy and the secondary imagination have to build on. So here's how it all stacks up on the creative ladder. It all starts with the primary imagination, the perceiver, which creates a coherent world for us. From that basic foundation, we can either use fancy, the assembler, to just rearrange the known parts of that world, Or we can tap into the secondary imagination, the creator, to dissolve those parts and fuse them into something the world has never seen before.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's kind of cool, but why did a poet spend so much time on such a dense philosophical theory? For Coleridge, this was not just some abstract game. It was the key to understanding the very soul of poetry itself.
He laid all of this out in his huge work of prose, the Biographia Literaria. It's this fascinating, wild book that's part life story, part deep philosophy on art. And right at the center of it is this distinction, all to answer one single question: what makes a poem great? And his answer? It all comes down to the secondary imagination. For Coleridge, true poetic genius is about harnessing this synthetic and magical power that doesn't just compare two different things. It fuses them together. It melts the Legos. This is what makes a reader feel this powerful, unified truth, instead of just admiring a clever arrangement of words.
Ultimately, this whole framework gives us a new language to talk about different kinds of creativity. A poem that only uses fancy can be witty and smart, sure, kind of like a well-organized list. But a poem that's born from imagination, it creates a new reality. It has a power that is so much more than the sum of its parts.
So the next time you sit down to write, or solve a problem, or even just daydream, try using Coleridge's ladder as a guide. Ask yourself, am I just rearranging the blocks that are already in the box? Or am I tapping into that deeper, more powerful force to melt them down and create something truly new?